All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Dune Messiah,
Okay.
the second book in Frank Herbert's Dune Chronicles.
All right.
So
That's good.
Dune Messiah picks up 12 years after the events of Dune.
Okay.
Paul Atreides, now Emperor Muad'dib, has control of Arrakis and the spice melange, and he essentially rules the known universe.
Yeah,
But as we'll see, power comes at a pretty steep price in this book.
for sure.
So we're going to unpack this whole complex web of prophecy, politics, and betrayal that unfolds in this thrilling sequel.
Great.
So right away at the start of this book, Herbert just throws us into a world that's kind of simmering with tension.
Yeah.
Paul is this godlike figure among the freemen.
He is.
He's got this prescience, but he's haunted by what he had to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
The jihad that was fought in his name resulted in billions of deaths.
Yeah,
And he's really struggling with that.
totally. And I think you see that right away in chapter 1.
Yeah, let's talk about chapter 1,
Okay.
which opens with Paul saying that very boldly, I am not a god.
Right.
But yet he's worshipped as one.
He is.
His every move is scrutinized.
Yeah, and
It's got to be tough.
it is. And I think Herbert uses this first chapter to establish the central conflict of this book,
Okay.
which is, Paul has this prescience,
Yeah.
which dictates his destiny,
Right.
but he's struggling against that. He wants to have a choice.
Yeah.
He wants a future that isn't just laid out in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And while the Fremen revere him,
Yeah.
that reverence has kind of bred dissent within their ranks
Oh, interesting.
because they see his terraforming efforts as a betrayal of their way of life.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They think he's become more God than Fremen.
Yeah, they want their planet back, their
Right.
desert planet.
Yeah.
So on top of all that, he's got this whole web of conspiracies swirling around him.
He does, yeah.
The Bene Gesserit,
Of course.
Lilac Zoo,
Always up to something.
and even his own wife, Princess Irulan, are all vying for power.
Yeah.
So in chapter 2, we learn that Irulan, who is a Bene Gesserit herself,
Right.
has been secretly giving contraceptives to Paul's concubine
Yeah.
and true love Chani.
Mm-hmm.
Why is she doing that?
Well, the Bene Gesserit have their breeding program
Yeah.
that they've been working on for centuries.
Yeah.
They're a little afraid of Paul's prescience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's uncontrolled.
Yeah.
And it could really disrupt their plans
Yeah.
for humanity's genetic evolution.
Wow.
So Irulan's trying to prevent Chani from having an heir
Okay.
to secure her own position and further the Bene Gesserit's agenda.
But Paul knows this, right?
He does.
His prescience lets him see through all this.
Right.
So why doesn't he just stop her?
Well, this is where Herbert really starts to explore the whole fate versus free will thing.
Okay.
Paul has seen that Chani will die in childbirth.
Oh, wow.
And so he believes that the only way to save her is to prevent her from getting pregnant.
Oh, so he's letting this happen
Yeah.
because he thinks it'll save her life.
Exactly. So it's this tragic paradox, his love for Chani is forcing him to act against his own desire to have a family with her.
So he's trapped
He is,
by his own foreknowledge.
yeah, he's a prisoner of his visions.
Wow.
And this is further emphasized by the introduction of Stilgar's nephew, Alia,
Okay.
who even as a child was exposed to the spice in utero,
Right, yeah.
which has given her these ancestral memories
Yeah.
and a dangerous level of awareness.
Wow.
So Herbert uses Alia to represent kind of the unsettling consequences of manipulating human potential and hinting at the dark path that she might be destined to follow.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 3, we get a new player introduced,
Yes.
a Duncan Idaho Gola.
Yes.
So tell us about this character.
So the Klailakzu,
Yeah.
who are masters of genetic manipulation,
Right.
they present Paul with a gift,
Okay.
a gola of his deceased swordmaster,
Okay.
and mentor Duncan Idaho.
Wow. So they basically cloned him
Exactly, they cloned him.
and brought him back.
Yeah, they're physically identical,
Okay.
but in theory, they don't have any memories of their past lives.
So this new Duncan,
Yeah.
they're calling him Hate, right?
Yes.
Is supposed to serve Paul,
Right.
but is he really?
Well, the Tleilax are always up to something.
Yeah.
They're hoping that hate can be used against Paul.
How would they do that?
Well, by exploiting Paul's guilt over Duncan's death
Okay.
and maybe turning him against the Atreides.
Oh, so this is like a long play
A very long play.
to get back at Paul.
Yeah.
Wow. But things aren't always that simple with Gulas, are they?
Not at all.
They're not just mindless clones,
Yeah,
right?
or not.
So what happens?
Well, hate starts to experience things,
Okay.
like these fragmented memories, flashes of emotion that he shouldn't have.
Wow.
So it raises the question, can a Gula really escape who they were before?
That's a good question.
Or is their existence inherently a manipulation,
Right.
a violation of the natural order?
Yeah. That's heavy stuff.
It is.
So, like, what does it mean to be human?
Exactly.
Can you really just remake somebody?
Right. Are they the same person?
And have them be a different person?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question.
That makes you think.
It does.
Okay. So moving on to chapter 4.
Okay.
We see something pretty crazy.
Yeah.
A sandworm heist.
Of all things...
I know who would steal a sandworm.
Right.
But why is this important, and how does it play into everything else that's going on?
So the Fremen who stole the sandworm, they're trying to disrupt Paul's control over Arrakis. So this is a direct challenge to his authority.
Okay.
It shows that there's this erosion of his power.
Yeah.
The Fremen are unhappy.
Right.
And this also highlights how important the spice is.
Yeah, the spice is everything, right?
Yes, everything. It's the lifeblood of the Empire.
Yeah.
And by stealing a sandworm, the rebels are trying to disrupt Paul's monopoly on spice production.
Oh, I see.
And challenge his godlike status.
Wow, so they're going right at him.
They are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the rebels aren't the only ones plotting against Paul, though.
No, they're not.
There's also this strange dwarf Bijaz.
Right.
Who is gifted to Paul by his old friend Ulfam.
Yeah, seemingly as like a gesture of loyalty.
Okay.
But there's more to Bijaz.
What do you mean?
Well, Paul, with all his prescience, never saw Bijaz coming.
Wow.
Like, Bijaz was never in his visions.
That's strange.
It's very strange.
So what does that mean?
It means that there are forces at work that are beyond Paul's perception.
Wow.
Manipulating things from the shadows.
So there's something else going on here.
There is.
This is getting really complex.
It is.
Yeah, so this Bijaz really adds another layer of intrigue.
He does.
To this already very complex plot.
For sure.
This is great. I'm really getting into this.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah, so it seems like this is just the beginning of the tension and betrayal that's going to unfold in the rest of this book.
For sure. Welcome back. So as we get further into Dune Messiah, things really start to heat up for Paul and everyone around him.
Yeah, last time we were talking about the growing unrest among the Fremen.
Right.
Like all this talk of rebellion.
Yeah.
And that mysterious dwarf Bijaz.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely a wild card.
Yeah, like what's his deal?
Who knows? That's what makes him so interesting, right?
I guess so.
Herbert does a great job of keeping us guessing.
And let's not forget about Scytale.
Oh, right. Scytale.
That Tleilaxu face dancer who's pretending to be that Fremen woman Lichna.
Yeah, he's a sneaky one.
He's playing a dangerous game.
He really is.
So in chapter 5, we see that Paul's prescience shows him the trap that's been set for him.
At Otham's house.
Yeah. And even though he knows it's dangerous,
he still goes.
He walks right into it.
It's a powerful moment.
It really is.
Because it shows how Paul is struggling with his desire for free will.
Yeah.
But he's also bound by what he sees in his visions.
He's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. And he's forced to make these choices.
Yeah.
That might save humanity.
Right.
But they come at a huge personal cost.
I can't even imagine having that kind of pressure.
It would be unbearable.
So the trap is sprung.
Right.
And the explosion at Otham's house leaves Paul permanently blinded.
Yeah.
A devastating blow.
It is.
But it actually kind of strengthens his prescience.
It's weird, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Like, you'd think it would weaken it.
Yeah, but it actually makes it stronger.
It does. It's like his other senses are heightened.
Oh, I see.
And it deepens his connection to time and events.
Wow. But he becomes even more reliant on his prescience.
Yeah.
And it really distances him from the Fremen.
Right, because they see it as a mark of his otherness.
They can't relate to it at all.
Not at all. And it really fuels their rebellion.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
They see him as this distant, godlike figure who doesn't understand their needs or traditions.
And it just keeps pushing them further away.
Exactly.
So chapter 6 focuses on Aelia.
Yes.
And her growing powers.
It's a fascinating part of the book.
Yeah, and she's really struggling with all these ancestral memories.
Yeah, they're flooding her consciousness.
And she's got this Bene Gesserit legacy.
Right.
And she's trying to figure out who she is.
It's a lot for anyone to handle.
Especially someone so young.
It really is.
And then there's Chani.
Right.
Who's pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a high-risk pregnancy.
Very high risk.
Because of the antidote to Irulan's poison.
Mm-hmm.
It's combined with Chani's high spice tolerance,
Right. And it's accelerated the pregnancy.
which is really dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
Wow, so even with this joy and anticipation,
There's this underlying threat.
yeah, it just shows how fragile life is in this universe.
It really does.
So with all this going on, everyone heads to Sheech Tab
Right.
for Chani to give birth.
Which is pretty remote.
Yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
So chapter 7 just throws us into all this crazy action
it does.
with Paul and Chani and Aaliyah
And Duncan.
and Bijaz, of course,
Of course. Always lurking.
making their way through the desert.
It's a dangerous journey.
It really is.
With threats all around them.
Like the Fremen rebels
Yeah.
and Scytale hiding in the shadows.
And who knows what Bijaz is up to.
Yeah, he's a total mystery.
And while all this is going on, they're dealing with their own internal struggles too.
Right. Like Paul's battling his prescience.
And Aaliyah's trying to control her powers.
And Duncan's wrestling with these fragmented memories.
And Chani's just trying to survive.
That's a lot.
That's a lot for anyone to handle.
And then tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
In chapter 8, Chani dies in childbirth.
It's a heartbreaking moment.
It really is.
It fulfills the prophecy that Paul has been dreading.
And it just shatters his hopes
It really does.
for a future with Chani
Yeah, he becomes even more withdrawn.
and resigned to his fate.
It's like he's given up.
But there's a twist.
There is.
Chani doesn't have just one child,
She has twins.
a boy and a girl.
It's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, amidst all this tragedy.
Exactly. And it represents a future that Paul couldn't foresee.
The twins could change everything.
It could.
So what about Bijaz?
Oh, yeah.
What happens with him?
Well, remember, he was implanted with a command.
Oh, yeah, to kill Paul.
Right. If he heard a specific phrase,
And Paul says it?
he does, overwhelmed by grief,
Oh,
he accidentally utters the words.
and Bijaz is activated.
Like a sleeper agent.
So even in his grief,
Paul is still a target.
it never ends for him.
Yep.
But then something amazing happens.
Yeah, Duncan steps in.
Yeah, he breaks free of his gula conditioning,
He becomes fully himself again.
and he stops Bijaz.
He saves Paul's life.
It's a huge moment for Duncan.
It is. It shows that he's not just a puppet.
Yeah, he's got his own will.
Exactly. He's his own person.
And he's loyal to Paul.
Yeah, he's not going to let anything happen to him.
So the immediate danger's gone.
For now.
But then Scytale shows up
Oh, no.
and reveals who he really is.
Typical Scytale.
Always waiting for the right moment.
Always steaming.
And he makes Paul an offer.
A pretty terrible one.
What does he want?
He wants Paul's power and wealth.
Of course he does.
And he threatens the twins.
Oh, no.
Saying he'll spare them.
If Paul gives him what he wants.
Exactly. He's a master manipulator.
That's awful.
He even offers Paul a gula of Chani.
Seriously?
Yeah, knowing how much Paul loved her.
He's playing with fire.
He is.
So what does Paul do?
He makes a choice.
Does he give in?
He doesn't.
He rejects Scytale's offer.
Yeah.
Wow.
He refuses to compromise his principles.
That's incredible.
It's
I'm really on the edge of my seat here.
It's a great story.
So what happens next?
Well, that's where we'll pick up
Next time.
in the final part of our deep dive into Dune Messiah.
All right, I can't wait.
Me neither.
So Paul tells Scytale, no way.
He does.
He won't give in.
He's done with being manipulated.
But it comes at a price, right?
Yeah, a big one.
What happens?
Paul loses his prescience.
Whoa.
It's gone completely.
No way.
Like the universe is rebalancing things.
Wow.
He's blind.
Literally.
Yeah, and in terms of his prescience, too.
He can't see the future anymore.
Nope.
That's huge.
It is.
So he beats Scytale, but loses his powers.
Yeah,
Wow. That's wild.
it is.
So what does Paul do now?
Well, in the last chapter of Dune Messiah,
Yeah.
Paul makes a choice.
Okay.
He embraces his blindness.
Literally?
Yes,
Yeah.
literally and metaphorically.
What do you mean?
He gives up being emperor.
He steps down?
Yeah.
Wow.
He leaves the empire to Aaliyah.
And the twins?
Yeah.
And he walks away from it all.
He walks into the desert.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
So why does he do that?
I think it's because he's finally learned
Yeah.
about power and prescience and free will.
Okay.
By blinding himself, he's breaking free.
From his visions.
Yeah, he's accepting the unknown.
Wow.
He's allowing for a future.
That isn't controlled by prophecy.
Exactly.
So his blindness is actually freeing him.
You could see it that way, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a paradox for sure.
It really makes you think.
Herbert was a genius.
So what about the others?
You mean Aaliyah and Duncan and the twins?
Yeah. What happens to them?
Well, Herbert leaves that open-ended.
Oh. So we don't know.
Not really.
He's choosing.
He wants us to imagine the possibilities.
Okay, I like that.
So Aaliyah has to rule the empire now.
Yeah.
But she's got her own demons to fight.
Right, all those ancestral memories.
Yeah.
And Duncan,
He's finally free.
yeah, from the Twi'leksu programming.
But now he has to figure out who he is.
Right, build his own identity.
Yeah.
And the twins,
They have a huge legacy to live up to.
they could change everything.
They could.
So Dune Messiah doesn't really have an ending.
Not in the traditional sense.
It's more like a beginning.
Yeah, the cycle continues.
The cycle of power and prophecy.
And rebellion.
Wow.
Herbert really makes you think.
About
Big questions.
Yeah, like, what does it mean to be human?
And what is the cost of power?
And can we escape our destiny?
These are all themes that he explores in Dune Messiah.
And it makes for a great story.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for talking about this with me.
It's been a pleasure.
I really enjoyed our deep dive into Dune Messiah.
Me too.
And to everyone listening,
Thanks for joining us.
we hope you enjoyed it too.
And keep reading.
And keep thinking.